Hello and welcome to the Late Night Comedy Slab podcast. I'm whispering Shane O'Connor and he's wheezing Adrian Lacey.
Don't lump me in with your viruses.
Yeah. God, I can't believe it. Here we are again. How many comedy slabs was it ago that I got a cold? And,
it's every other one, isn't it?
Yeah, and then I don't know, about 24 hours ago, I thought, my throat's really sore again. I'd blame the kids because I don't get to go out anywhere anyway these days. But they're all right. They're quite healthy. It's just me. So I've got my little sweeties here to
lovely,
to suck
Is that
on.
a product placement?
Yeah. I can't tell you what they are because I've ripped the paper off them, so I don't.
This is not Ant Deck's Saturday night takeaway or whatever they call it these days.
Ant and Deck's Saturday night shopping trolley.
Yeah.
So anyway, Welcome to the Comedy Slab podcast. So apologies for My Little Pony. I'm a little horse.
Oh dear.
I've said to Adrian, don't make me laugh. But this is episode 83, and he hasn't done it for 82 episodes, so I don't think he's going to start tonight.
Why begin now? Yeah,
I'll end up with a real coughing fit if you make me laugh. So please don't write in. But yeah, so
it wasn't the cough that carried him off. It was the coughing they carried him off in.
Yeah. So hopefully, I'm going to sound a little bit sexier than I normally do. So hello and welcome.
To all you truckers.
Yeah, I'm not sure how long I'm going to keep that up for anyway. So, welcome to the Comedy Slab podcast. If you've not heard it before, Adrian and I, in the best tradition of royalty, choose a comedy programme to throw on the slab, to critique, to analyse, to pick into, to fiddle about with, and to tell you what we thought about it, and to chew the bones of why we think what we think, really. He chooses one week, I choose one the next week. We'll play 3 clips throughout the podcast, which will last about an hour, although it probably seem a bit longer. And there's another new feature along the way as well, where I got to get this right. Where I tonight, Matthew. Hang on, let's get this right around.
Take your time.
I have to tell Adrian what Adrian thought of it before he actually tells me what he thought of it. I've got to try and guess that's right, isn't it? It's me asking you tonight, isn't it? Because I chose the comedy to slab.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes, it gets ever more complicated, but I think it was so simple back in the old days.
Oh, I love it. The complexity is the thing that I love the most about it. It's because it adds a bit of jeopardy that even you, with your ability to drill down and make sense of the minutiae of this podcast, even you haven't got a clue what we're doing now. That's how far we've got with it, really. So it's quite nice. Quite nice. Some industry news I've got to mention as well, because I saw this and I thought of you, because we were both, I think I'm right in saying we were both a little bit disappointed by the first series, but the Alan Partridge thing on BBC One has been greenlit for a second series. Did you see that?
No, I didn't. No, that's news to me.
Which I don't know. I mean, I don't know. It was because it was like a kind of parody of The One Show, which is, if you listen outside the UK, The One Show was like nationwide.
No, that'll really help. Yeah.
No, it's like a kind of it's a national magazine program that somehow makes it all seem parochial. I don't quite know how they manage it, but and it was a kind of he was standing in on that kind of show, wasn't he?
I wish to slightly distance myself from those remarks, not least because Matt Baker gave me an autograph for my niece when she was younger, so I'm indebted to him for that.
I don't even know who that is.
Well, one of the presenters of The One Show.
No, your niece, I mean. I don't know who that is.
Very good.
No, I did actually. I don't know who Matt Baker is. Wasn't he one of the Doctor Who's? Is he in a relative to Tom and Colin?
One of the Matts is, but don't confuse things.
And what was the newsreader who didn't he pass away recently? Was it Kenneth Baker?
Richard Baker.
Richard Baker.
Kenneth Baker was a politician. Actually, is still a politician, I think. Isn't he still with us? Former Education Secretary under Madame Thatch.
He's now in the upper chamber, isn't he? Or,
he is indeed.
Or as we call it in our house, the upstairs bathroom.
I was going to say the gentleman's excuse me. May I have the pleasure of this lordship?
I think what we've proved is there's a lot of bakers at the BBC, or at least a dozen.
Way!
Thank you.
You're on fire tonight, just
thank
like Alfred's cakes.
So how do you feel about that then? The idea of
Hang on, I've forgotten how that began.
a second series of... Go on, give him a second series, you swine.
You little... how do I feel about it? I feel... Do you know, my first thought was actually for you, how you would feel about it. This is how our showbiz marriage has changed me.
It's caring, isn't it?
I just used to think of myself, and now I've opened it out. I don't think you're going to be any more impressed. I don't think you're going to, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I don't think you're going to expect too much of it because you weren't that impressed by the first series of this sort of comeback kid thing.
Yeah. And I don't know why, because I mean, it's not even the writers, because they wrote the film, and I quite enjoyed the film for what it was. I mean, it wasn't
Alpha
Papa. Yeah,
I mean, Alpha Piper.
It wasn't Coogan's finest hour as Partridge. I don't think. I think it's still I'm Alan Partridge, isn't it? The two series of that, and possibly the second series was the best. But so it's not the writing team that's the problem. But yeah, I don't really know what it is. But yeah, you're right. I won't have particularly hard. You didn't mind it, Sam. You still weren't very impressed with it, though, were you? You didn't mind it too much. You weren't that
well,
impressed.
if you remember, at the end of the year, I actually reassessed it and marked it down a tad.
Yes,
really regretfully. But I still think it's a bit like Woody Allen. You could argue he's not done a decent classic type movie for 25 plus years, but still. Woody Allen, even on a bad day, I'll take over many, many other directors and writers.
I think that's
so.
Yeah.
It's partly expectation, isn't it? You measure it against expectation, and if expectations are huge, then the chances of not quite meeting them are larger than they'd otherwise be. Okay,
talking about expectations, should we go on to tonight's program that we're going to analyse on the comedy slab? Old school. I didn't realise how old school, actually, because I kind of think of this as a relatively new thing, but of course we're all getting old. Doesn't it go back to 95, the first series? I think this is...
Well, I still think of 1995 as being about 5 years ago, which shows that my clock stopped 20 years ago.
I remember when I got Windows 95, the operating system, and that seems like only 5 minutes ago. It's ridiculous, isn't it, really? But yeah, 1995, you think, oh dear, we're all getting old, really. It is old school. Back to radio as well, and it was a Radio 4 comedy called Old Harry's Game, written by Andy Hamilton, and directed as well, which is quite interesting to get a directing credit on a radio show, isn't it? That doesn't happen very often, does it?
That's a good point. Yeah, I clocked it as being credited to him, but yeah, very often in radio, even sort of quasi-drama type radio or comedy radio, the producer is also the director, and they're not credited separately as the director. I think that'd be fair to say.
But anyway, yeah, I kind of got the impression that it was his baby, and he was, what he meant by that, listing himself as the director or being listed as the director, was that he was the one who was almost like an executive producer role. He was like kind of overseeing it and making the bigger decisions for the whole of the thing, really. But it lasted for 7 series, I think, didn't it? So you can't have been doing all that wrong. Although we've talked about these long-running commissions at Radio 4 previously, I'm not sure whether it was like that in 95 and through to 2005, 2010, but. Who knows? But yeah, we decided to go back to episode 1, series 1, episode 1. Before we play the first clip, then, shall I hazard a guess as to what you made of it?
Isn't that the other side of the first of 3 audio clips?
Is it?
I'm not sure.
I never know which side of the clip.
Who knows what the rules are? Hazard a guess now, but I can't tell you, can I, until after we hear the clip? No,
I thought that's what we did, and then we heard the clip, and then you...
Okay, you tease me, I'll tease you, and it'll be a mutual tease.
We're a pair of teasers.
Tease for 2.
Malt teasers. So, I think... Oh, dear. I really don't know. This is like...
Oh, I like this. That's real Jeopardy.
I don't know. I really don't. It is toss a coin time for me, really, because... I don't know. I think...
You could toss a caber.
Well, there's a gag there. And
we're going to leave well alone.
And I'm not going to do it. And I'm surprised you've not taken the opportunity to insult me. If you toss the coin and I'll toss the caber, and between us, we'll just be a pair of disappointed people.
You take it the high road.
Yeah. I would say on the whole. That's my. I think you'll be okay with it. It's not going to set the world on fire, but I think you'll be okay with it. I think it's a 3.5.
Is that a hellish reference? Not setting the world on fire.
I'm
the underworld.
I'm not saying you should give it 3.5, but do you know what I mean? As an
that's what you think I will.
As an illustration, that's where I think you are with it. A 3.5 to a 4. You kind of think it's okay. It's okay.
Okay. Well, shall we get into the first of the 3 audio clips? And do you want to set the scene, dear boy?
Yeah. Our main character, a guy called Thomas Quentin Crimp. You think he's waking up in. Well, I did. I thought he was waking up in hospital. So I'll leave it at that for the time being and say that this is where we join Thomas lying in a hospital bed as he wakes up.
Oh, where am I? I can't move. What are all these tubes sticking out at me? I look like the Pompidou Centre. I'll ask one of these nurses. That's funny, I can't speak. Don't panic, Thomas. I'm sure there's a perfectly rational explanation for your being unable to move or speak. Perhaps it's just a very bad hangover. Or, no, I remember. The car crash. That pillock in the Fiesta wouldn't get a move on. It all comes back to me now. Everything happening in slow motion, hurtling through the windscreen like a crashed dummy. Shatterproof my And what happened to the airbag? That's what I want to know. I'll sue the manufacturers, that's it, yes. For the injuries and post-traumatic stress disorder syndrome. Oh, I'll make a fortune. And I'll sue that in the Fiesta as well. Unless he's dead. He probably is dead. The way his car smashed into that tree. Never mind. I'll sue his widow.
Am I being ignorant here? I thought he was in hospital. He is in hospital.
He's in hospital, yeah, but...
doesn't stay there.
But I thought he'd woken up when I first heard, but he's actually not awake, is he? He's conscious.
Well, I thought he was awake in that he struggled to speak to the nurse, didn't he? Oh, I can't speak, kind of thing.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah, maybe.
Or yeah. Anyway, that is. It's not. I don't think it makes a huge amount of difference, but anyway. Right. Am I giving a headline?
Yeah.
Old Harry's game for not many laughs.
Oh, God. Oh, no.
No, said his mother.
Oh, no.
Do you remember Joe?
Oh, dear. Can I say 2.5?
You're not allowed to change your script, and you can say 2.5, but you're stuck with your original summation.
Sorry, was that a kids' programme you were referencing then called Joe?
Yes. The writer's only just died recently, bless her. She was in her 80s.
That's somewhere in the back of my consciousness.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think it was just called Joe. Used to say it when we visited my granddad's, like. Anyway, that's a slight digression. Right, so what can I add at this stage? I enjoyed it overall. And the world is a better place for this show, rather than it not being there. But I think I was reminded why... Truth is, I'd never heard a whole episode, but I think it was always around, or it feels like it was always around. By that, I suppose I mean hearing it trailed on Radio 4, so it's a BBC Radio 4 production. Paul Mayhew-Archer, who has a fine radio comedy pedigree.
He's prolific, isn't he?
And father of... have I got it the right way around? Simon Mayhew-Archer is the son.
Paul's the father, isn't he? I think,
yeah. So, we're in safe hands here. I don't know how deeply I want to go into it at this stage, because it's something that might sort of unfold over time, but and it's hard to put to actually work out what it is, and I'm still trying to work out what it is. There's something about Andy Hamilton's work that doesn't quite resonate with me, but it's good. I mean, that line we heard, the first laugh, and deservedly a good old laugh, I've got all these tubes going into me. I feel like the Pompidou Centre. I'm slightly misquoting it, no doubt. But, that's a nice line. And you think, oh, yeah, we can relax. We're in, as I say, professional hands, good hands. And it's an enjoyable premise, isn't it? Let's have some fun with the idea of the underworld.
Well, you see, I thought it was quite clever because there's the Thomas character, who we learn quite quickly. He's there. I'm going to sue his widow, and I'm going to sue everybody. You learn he's quite a nasty, devious, underhand, scheming, conniving kind of character. And then you've got the professor who you meet later on in the episode, who is a very cerebral person and a very different entity entirely. And so you've got not only have you got the backdrop of hell, but you've also got those two characters bouncing off each other, and the kind of differences there as well. But yeah, it's really weird because I feel the same as you, but I remember it more fondly maybe than listening to it this time around. But I still really enjoyed it. There's something, and I think that's what you're trying to say. There's something comfortable about it, and I don't mean that in a negative way. Do you know what I mean?
No.
It's like putting on an old pair of slippers, and you think, oh, yeah, I know, yeah, we're all right now. This is going to be okay, kind of thing. But the laughs, I like Andy Hamilton's stuff. And always have done. And if you think where he came from, I was just doing a bit of research about where he started writing. I think one of the broadcast stuff that he did for the news headlines.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
Which was Radio 2 back in the day, wasn't it? I think
was indeed. Yes. Saturday afternoons. Remember it well. It ran for many years.
And then it used to be repeated. Was it on a Monday night at 10 o'clock or something like that?
Was it? Well? Yeah. There used to be other comedy slots on Radio 2 back in the day.
Did they used to have comedy on Radio 4, or they wouldn't have it then?
No, I think they've always had it. Probably even going back to the home service. I don't know. Actually, maybe not going back to the home service, which is pre-67, before our time, obviously. I think. Well, because Radio 2 was previously known as the light service, so maybe all the comedy was on Radio 2 in those days.
I was trying to think where Hancock would have been, and Clitheroe.
I would have thought the light service, but I could be wrong.
The Navy Lark and all those.
You've opened a whole can of
comedies.
Yes.
Do you get comedy in a can? I suppose it keeps it fresh, doesn't it?
I suppose so.
But yeah, so that was like that we started. He's been a writer on the 9 o'clock news. Who Dares Wins, which I think was another sketch show, wasn't it? He's worked for.
Well, it was Channel 4, wasn't it? In the early days.
Wasn't that what's his name as well? The Jimmy Mulville.
Yes, Jimmy. Jimmy is playing Thomas, isn't he?
I'm sure he was in Who Dares Wins as well.
Yeah, he was. I was just having a look. I'm not sure if I'm right about Channel 4, but didn't some of them, or Rory McGraw? Some of them went on to create Hat Trick Productions, didn't they?
It was Mulville, Rory McGraw, and somebody else who started. It was Hat Trick, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And then McGraw pulled out, or he left some time afterwards, I think. But yeah, he's done all sorts of Drop the Dead Donkey as well. Do you remember which was a groundbreaking TV series in the UK because it was the first comedy program. Remember they're making a big thing about this. This was Channel 4, first comedy program to have topical jokes in the script, and they kind of learnt the script right up until the transmission time, didn't they? Yes,
I like that. I mean, that's real Jeopardy, isn't it, in showbiz terms?
Yeah, but he's written for Armstrong and Miller. He's even written for the Two Ronnies, apparently, Andy Hamilton.
Yes, that might have been later Two Ronnies, I don't know.
Probably was.
But here's the thing, missing from all his credits, and I'm convinced, would you believe me if I said I'd worked on a show that Andy was writer for in my days working in TV?
Right.
And if I tell you it was... my recollection, as I say, it's not appearing anywhere, whether he's airbrushed it or... I really do trust my memory on this one, I have to say. I definitely worked on a TV show where I can see him now. I was in the audience, we'd done the rig, and my colleague, it was slightly embarrassing because my colleague was very cheeky, and and it was so cheeky that it wasn't quite funny. You know, like we might josh each other and say, "Oh, what load of nonsense have you got for us this week?"
Yeah.
I just couldn't convince myself that it was quite a joke, and it didn't quite work with Andy either. I don't think he appreciated that.
I think you have to know each other well to do that as well, don't you?
I think so, yeah.
There is a line, isn't there? What did he say to him then? Was that what he said?
Yeah, that was it. That was instead of saying, "Oh, good morning, Andy." And so I got the impression they'd obviously worked on shows before, but whether my colleague was quite as chummy with him as he wanted to make out and wanted to sound. Anyway, the show is, from my recollection, Noel's house party, no less. I did quite a few of those. So this is, of course, Noel Edmonds back in the day. They'd follow up to the Late Breakfast show, which came to a very tragic end with the death of one of the participants. So that show was pulled. Michael Lush. I was around. I wasn't working on that show, but I was around that time that all happened. That was really quite shocking for everyone. You know, if you're working with a group of people, you can sometimes feel a collective sadness. And there was that heavy feel around that time.
Oh, it sent huge waves through the BBC as well, didn't it? I mean, everybody had to go on a course after that, didn't they? To you know, health and safety was taken really, really seriously then after that.
Yeah,
there was another incident where they blew Anthea Turner up, but nobody seemed to mind too much about that one, which I don't know, speaks volumes, doesn't it? Really, I suppose. I don't know.
Were you responsible?
I was somewhere else at the time.
Yeah, right.
I was in
jail.
I was in a pyrotechnic shop buying some more.
Oh, you rotter. Anyway, so. But what can I say? There's nowhere does it appear. Even if I Googled Noel's house party and Andy Hamilton, it doesn't come up with a straightforward. You know, what you get is an Andy, but not an Andy Hamilton. Well, but I trust my memory, as I say, on that one.
Well, I trust your memory as well. Could I venture to suggest it's a bit like, and we talked about this before, about how the new wave of alternative comedians, you know, tried to sort of perform an act of revisionist history on, you know, the likes of Terry and June and all the programs that people had loved and admired, and Benny Hill, and, you know, tried to write them out of the history books. I would put it to you, my lud, my love,
right, my love.
That you know, but maybe there's a bit of that going on there. It's a bit of snobbery, maybe, because within the industry, I'm sure if you put on your CV, I worked on Noel's house party, that you would be sneered to within an inch of your life. Whereas if, you know, the punters, I mean, I remember Noel's house party very fondly, and I remember. Sorry for my voice going all funny there, because it's cold. Oh.
No, I think it was the emotion recalling Noel's house party.
I'm breaking up.
I loved it. I really loved it.
But yeah, no, I mean, it was a great bit of TV and groundbreaking at the time, because you know, nobody had done anything like it apart from him for the, you know, the previous series that you mentioned. But I wonder if it's that, you know, I wonder if it's like, oh, don't mention the house party. I mentioned it once. I think we got away with it.
Well, the other thing is some shows don't credit a writer, particularly where you might have reasons to. I mean, it's one of those slightly shadowy TV things. It's not a complete deception, but you've come across the credit for a sort of program associate.
Yeah.
Terry Wogan's writer. Well, we had a number of writers, I think, but Neil Shand, who sadly he's passed away in recent months. He was a writer for Terry, and he was never credited as writer because I think the producer wants you to think it's Terry's words, you know. Yeah. And it's off the cuff and all of that. The fact that it's even written down, there's this kind of subtle veil pulled over it. Yeah. Because, of course, Terry, I mean, he could ad-lib his way out of anything. You heard him as a top jock on Radio 2, breakfast show for years and years and years. You know, very little of that would have been written down. So he could ad-lib, but TV being TV, it is more structured, and that kind of show is the links are scripted, if not certainly not the conversation.
They don't like it, do they, to ad-lib, because obviously then there's a director trying to direct cameramen, and you know, and it's they've then got to ad-lib, and or they've got to react rather than being able to be creative in you know, and create something beforehand. That's why they rehearse and all the rest of it, isn't it, really? But I mean, if Andy Hamilton wanted something to be embarrassed about, I mean, Outnumbered would surely be
You wouldn't let it lie, would you?
No, but
you wouldn't let it lie.
You see, I think all writers have that capacity to infuriate me, and I often think of Roy Clark, who wrote Open All Hours, which I loved, and then went on to write millions of episodes of Last of the Summer Wine. In fairness to him, actually, he didn't write a lot of them. They were kind of ghostwritten, but he came up with the original concept of Last of the Summer Wine. So you kind of think, how can, from the pen of one person, how can something that you love so much can also come something that you don't love so much? And so I think, I'm quite relaxed with Andy Hamilton writing Outnumbered, but.
Can I just say, or remind people, or tell them for the first time if they haven't heard me previously say, I don't think it's so terrible. You have such a visceral reaction to Outnumbered. I think it's a perfectly fine show that found its audience, and shockingly, perhaps, again, for people who know my style, I watched more than one edition.
Did you?
I can proudly say, yes.
Can I describe, for somebody who's not seen Outnumbered, I always describe it to people as like waking up in somebody else's nightmare.
I think it's your own nightmare. But was the problem with it? We must get on to our second audio clip, but in a sec. But was it just too twee and middle class for you?
No, it was that I don't like the smarty kids. I mean, that doesn't play with me at all. The lippy, cheeky, smarty. They get the funny lines. Kids, I don't like that. It just winds me up. And I've always had a problem with Hugh Dennis. Is it Hugh Dennis or Steve Punt that's in it? I can remember which one's.
It's Hugh Dennis.
Like Anton Deck to me. Who?
Oh, that's wounding.
He's never done me any harm, and I don't hold him any malice personally. But
it sounds like it.
I've never kind of liked stuff that he's been in, although I've tried to, and so. And I just, it wasn't believable. It wasn't, I'd happily watch Terry and June if you're talking middle class. That's not a problem. There's just something about the concoction of that just, it's like dragging nails down a blackboard to me.
Okay. Can I just point out, all right, for the sake of completeness, Andy Hamilton was co-writing Outnumbered with Guy Jenkin, who you may well know, because I know you do your homework, and you probably know this anyway. He was another writer or co-writer with Andy on Drop the Dead Donkey and Ballot Monkeys, which I think Andy Hamilton's written.
Another fine piece of work. Have you seen that? Did you watch any of that Ballot Monkeys?
I did. Yeah, that was Jeopardy again, wasn't it? Very, very close to transmission, written maybe even in the afternoon or something.
Yeah.
Not quite live, but not far off it.
Yeah.
What I saw of it was good.
This is why it's quite interesting, I think, with this, is because he very often writes news, satirical, current stuff, and this isn't like that at all. I think this is why it's such an interesting piece of Andy Hamilton's work to critique, because it isn't his usual. He's not in his usual backyard, is he? Do you think?
I think you're right. I mean, it certainly feels like an authored piece. I'm sure he would have loved to have taken it onto TV. I don't think it happened, did it?
No.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
No.
But it sounds like something he had to get out of his system, and hopefully a labour of love. We don't know. I don't know the background stories, but it comes across like an authored piece.
To me, 7 series, that material is a waste to not take it onto TV, because an awful lot of people won't have come across it. And if I was a commissioner, I would try and commission an animated short. So, like, have a sorry, my cat's just gone flying across the room then for some reason.
I thought it was your paperwork.
Quite know what that was. I think she's playing with a fly. Leave my trousers alone.
Wait.
I would have done an animated 10 or 15 minute piece with the material. That's how I would have commissioned it. But hey, what do I know?
What, a one-off or a series?
No, it was a series. But I'd have done it. I'd have done it because it would have given you the flexibility to visually do something that would be on a par with the writing and the expectation of the writing.
Yeah, no, I could see that working.
But
also, it's making the most of your money, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Since it's the same BBC, if it went on to BBC TV. Anyway, are you going to set the scene for clip number 2?
Yeah,
please,
I was going to say,
Mr.
can we have another
Professor?
clip, because I can have
Another one of those.
What Victor Meldrew would often refer to as, have we got any more sucky sweets? I mentioned earlier on that Thomas was one of the main characters, and one of the other, obviously the devil or Satan or Beelzebub or whatever you want to call him. He's got an awful lot of names, hasn't he, when he starts to think about it?
Yeah, Lucifer.
Lucifer, another good one. Yeah, I'll give you 10 points for Lucifer.
I love Lucifer.
See,
good TV show.
I love with Desi Arnaz. Yeah, so you've got Thomas, who's like kind of the nasty piece of work. You've got the devil, who's the even nastier piece of work, and then as a bit of a counterfoil for all of that, somebody who is not nasty and not a nasty piece of work at all. Is a character called the Professor, which I don't think I'm giving too much away, where they kind of allude to the fact that he was the guy driving the Fiesta in the car crash that put Thomas into his predicament and ultimately killed him as well. Did you notice that?
Well, I noticed 2 car crashes. Do we know for a fact it's the same?
Yeah, he mentioned. He said, one minute I was in my Fiesta. Or he makes some
right, yeah.
I
missed that then.
And then this blooming idiot forced me into a tree or something. Like, it was that kind of thing, and I thought, oh yeah, I'd forgotten that was the.
That was joining some of the dots. That's nice.
Yeah, that was the setup. Anyway, so the devil and his number 2, who I love, he's called Gary. Which I just think is fabulous, because all the Garys I've known wouldn't have been amiss in the right hand of the Lord of Darkness.
I wish to distance myself from that remark, having not one but 2 Gary friends.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah, but yours are all right. These weren't my friends. These were acquaintances. But so no, the devil and Gary, his assistant, go to meet the Professor, and. Satan thinks, for a bit of a laugh, he said, well, I'm going to transform myself into this horrible sight.
Watch this for a transformation. It'll scare the poor bugger witless, sir.
Where I go? Oh, yes! A sight! Oh, nice one! Behold, mortal and weep, for you have entered my realm of torment. And here you shall languish through all eternity, for I am the bringer of destruction, the Prince of Doom. Gosh. Gosh? Is that all? Gosh?
Well, the glowing eyes, the head crowned by writhing serpents, all very impressive. Well done.
Well, you do know who I am, don't you?
Yes, Satan.
Correct.
From the Hebrew word meaning adversary.
Yes. And you do know where you are?
Yes, of course I do.
Good.
I'm in hospital, no doubt in a coma. And whilst in that coma, clearly my subconscious is drawing on stored cultural images of hell to create this hallucinogenic experience.
I've got a very bad feeling about this one, Gary.
And Gary played by Stephen or Steve O'Donnell.
Who I love, who I always refer to. Oh, he's the guy who played Spudgun in Bottom.
Oh, right. Okay.
He was a character called Spudgun in Rick Mayall and Adrian Edmondson's Bottom.
So to speak.
Yes, if you pardon the expression.
I've told you, and I've told our listeners, have I not, that I played the farts on Bottom on one occasion.
No, you haven't. I don't think any of you ever mentioned that.
Some of my farts got cut. Yes, in my sound engineering days, I was upstairs in the control room. That was great fun, because it was all done on a sampler, which is, I mean, it's much more prosaic type of kit these days, but in those days it was cutting edge. And
what did you use? Was it like a Fairlight or something like that, or what did you?
We just had. It wasn't a proper brand, actually. I think it was made by BBC
engineers,
boffins. Yes, the best kind of thing. Well, but it was a trigger that then would trigger a sampler.
They were good at that, weren't they? I mean, a lot of people wouldn't realise that. I mean, both you and I have worked in local radio, and up until quite recently, most of the broadcast desks, the knobs that you fiddle and the faders that you push and the carts that you put in, or the technical stuff, they were all made. They were BBC made, weren't they? They were made by the engineers, a lot of them, So they were amazing, and they did the same with TV stuff as well, didn't they? They make it.
Yes, and because in the very early days of the Beeb, and don't forget, of course, it's coming up to its centenary the year after next. So it's been around a while, and certainly in the history of broadcasting, it goes back virtually to the year dot, not quite, but not far off. And in those days, there weren't off-the-shelf manufacturers, so who else was going to make a BBC microphone but the BBC in the very early days? Now, where were we going with that?
Well, you were just saying about you had your farts cut, which is not as not a sentence you hear every day of the week, wherever
You'd think, actually, that would be a good thing, but... yes, I wish I could mute them at other times when... anyway, not dwelling on that. I'm going to go with a theory about what doesn't quite do it for me with Andy Hamilton's work. And like you and who you were previously mentioning, Mr. Punt, I've got nothing personally against Mr. Hamilton. I'm sure he's a nice guy. I was even in a restaurant in the days when I was still with my wife. We went to a restaurant, I don't know... For some reason, we were near Victoria Coach Station. Don't ask me why. We weren't on a coach. But we were that neck of the woods and just chanced upon a nice-looking, very homely Italian restaurant. We go inside the Italian restaurant. Who should be at the next table from us, where we eventually settled, but Andy Hamilton.
Oh, wow.
And at that stage, actually, I'm just continuing the thought, before I get back to what doesn't quite work for me, and I would have grovelled a bit more then, of course, because I'd read an article. I don't know whether you knew, at one stage, this is only a few years ago, Andy Hamilton was trying to raise some money to write a book, and it made The Independent, actually, or Independent on Sunday, that he was offering to go around to people's houses to speak at their dinner party, to be a kind of celeb guest. He did want to restrict it geographically. He wasn't going to travel to the other side of the world. It was, I think, restricted to his part of town, which is southwest London. Yeah. But, there's a few well-heeled people, though. There, it was £500 to have Andy Hamilton come round and do some anecdotes, be the kind of guest speaker at your dinner party. I thought that was a nice, creative way of getting a few bob.
We should do that, shouldn't we? We should do that for the podcast and say, have Adrian Lacey, obviously just restrict it to North-West Kent. But Adrian Lacey will come round to your dinner party, not to speak.
And wash up.
But do the washing up, And
I can see that work.
And he'll bring a radio show to listen to while he does the washing up, but he won't listen to all of it.
But, well, you know me, and he won't listen to any more in the series. Yeah. But and neither will he get £500 at the end of the night. Be lucky to make a hundredth of that. Anyway, so what doesn't quite work? Well, it's clever stuff, and I'm just looking at his education. He was schooled at Westminster City School, which was then, I'm told, a voluntary aided grammar school. He read English at Downing College, Cambridge. This is how thick I am. I've not even heard of Downing College. Right. Heard of Cambridge. And I did actually get interviewed at Cambridge, but not down in college.
I went to Cambridge, don't you? We had a lovely day out shopping. It was fabulous.
Didn't you go on the river with Steve Punt?
Steve
oh,
yeah, I went on the buzz. Yeah,
that hurt me more than it hurt you.
Yeah.
No, what's lacking? And so there's no IQ lacking with Andy Hamilton. I just think a bit of warmth is lacking. And I know we're talking about the devil here, and he's meant to be, cloven-hooved and all of that. But I just mean generally in his writing and his performing, there's something just a bit cold about it all, in my estimation.
I wonder if it's because he's out of his comfort zone, and I think it's quite interesting. There was one line in there, and I said to you, he writes current topical stuff. And he made reference to Eric Cantona.
Oh, yeah, that didn't travel very well for me, not being a football fan, and because the show's 25 years old.
Well, but actually, it was 25 years ago. It was the January of 1995 that Eric Cantona, at a football match, and forgive me,
kicked someone.
Yeah,
someone in the crowd.
He was playing for Man United. I can't remember who they were playing, but he kicked an opposing... Well, he didn't kick an opposing fan. He actually... leapt across the advertising hoardings and two-footed the guy in the chest. I mean,
oh god, yeah, it was a nasty attack, wasn't
it? But so that would have been his topical reference for his comfort zone. Because there isn't a lot of warmth in writing topical gags, is there really? I wouldn't have thought. There isn't, it's not, it's almost the clinical end of creativity, isn't it, don't you think?
It does feel, well, I'm not necessarily just with the topical stuff, but coming back to my general feeling about his work, of which this is obviously a part, it's a little bit comedy by numbers.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I don't know if that's quite where you're coming from. No,
I feel... I hear what you're saying, and I think you're not. We're not on completely different pages when you say about warmth. I think there is a clinical element to his writing, but you make it, then you sort of by numbers you kind of make it sound like it's going through the motions. I don't think it's quite,
just a bit churned out. I mean, yeah.
Right. He's quite prolific though, isn't he? I suppose. Does that come with the territory? I don't.
It's certainly a danger of it, isn't it? That you just... I mean, I'd like to... I don't think he's written a novel, for instance, and I'd like to see, just take a break from comedy and see what he could do in... Because he is a clever guy, as we've said, and he's very well connected. Just a bit of serious drama writing, or... I couldn't see any in his collection.
Surprised he hasn't done that, actually. That's not a bad suggestion. I just like the way his mind works. It's like there was one section where... they go off and the way they travel is they ride on the back of a jockey each. They're like kind of the punishments in hell. He's got like he keeps all the architects in a tiny box, and there's a Pope enclosure where they're all permanently 8 months pregnant.
Yeah, some good gags there. I thought I was going to read actually. Sorry on that he'd had a Catholic upbringing, because there's a couple of. I think it'd be safe to say, fairly anti-Catholic remarks. And remember, this is a quarter of a century ago, before all the scandal hit the Catholic Church.
He did go to a school that was actually scandal-ridden. He went to a private school before the two that you mentioned, I think, and I was reading about it, and they had quite a scandal there. And I think it was a Catholic order of monks, I think. Or fathers, or whatever they call them. But yeah, so he had been at a school where abuse had taken place on a pretty industrial scale.
Oh right, okay. Well, in which case I did sense that.
I'm not saying that he was subject to that, but
he would be aware of it.
Yeah, he would think. At the very least, he'd known all about it. I would have thought. Yeah. Shall we have a final clip?
Yeah. Let's do it.
In an attempt to prove where he is to the professor, because the professor, he's got this notion that he's, as you mentioned in the last clip, that he's in a coma, and this is all like kind of a thing that he's imagining in his own brain. But Satan decides to take him to the one place where he feels that he can prove his point that he is dead.
Where are we going now?
To your funeral. We've missed the church service, I'm afraid.
Dust to dust, ashes to ashes.
Still, good turnout. And a nice day for it.
No one can see us, can they?
No. Well, I felt that a cloven-footed demon materialising at the graveside, accompanied by the deceased, might disrupt things a little. Is that the wife?
Yes, that's Deborah.
Well, she looks very nice.
Yes, she is. She's lovely.
Are you okay?
I'm sorry, I always cry at funerals, especially my own.
Well, everyone seems very upset. That must be gratifying for you.
Do you come to the surface very often?
Oh, I used to be up and down all the time, walking abroad and sowing discord among the nations. There's no real need now. The UN does all that for me. So, how long were you and your wife...
27 years.
Uh-huh. And were you happy?
Yeah, I think we were. Yes, we were. And we were happy, not just make-do happy.
Well, there's more than one kind, then?
Oh, yeah.
Right, have you seen enough?
Yes, I think so.
Come on, then. Come on.
I'm just looking at the blossoms.
Going down?
Just as a semi-aside, I didn't quite get why 1 minute he's sad about seeing his wife. This is the professor who's died. And then it's sort of, he has to think about whether they were happy. That's confusing.
Do you think?
Well, it confused me. As you know, it doesn't take an awful lot. But
I didn't think he was like, he had to think. It was like kind of a reflective Yeah, I think we were happy. You know, that kind of... I don't know. I must admit, I did like... It's James Grouse, isn't it, that's playing the Professor, who... Another actor who sadly died not too long ago.
Right.
I just thought he's kind of nailed the part of the Professor. It was just... I mean, the cast I thought were excellent, weren't they? I mean, Jimmy Mulville I could listen to all day. I think he's a very funny guy. Hamilton putting himself in. What do you think about that? What do you think about... I'm not sure about writers who cast themselves. I'm never convinced about that.
I'm not particularly a fan of his voice, which might sound a bit mean-spirited, but then it's almost casting against type. You don't want a great stentorian sort of lovey type Satan, do you?
No.
You want someone who's, that trips you up a bit in your expectations, who is a bit... It's a bit like the Wizard of Oz, isn't it, behind the curtain? You draw back the curtain and he's not nearly as frightening as he sounds.
Yeah.
That's, of course, a visual medium film, but here we haven't got the visuals, so I think it sort of works, but I don't know. I know what it is. There's a kind of smart arsery about him, if I may say.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
That it's just, if he was at school, he would be the one, the quick-witted one. He might get a laugh in class, I'm sure he did, but it's sort of a bit fatiguing after a while. So do you have to be first to get the laugh?
Like the witty retort when I think somebody says to him at one point about he said, is it Thomas, I think it says, are you Satan? And he said, I'm not a talking cow, am I? With the horns and that kind of thing. And yeah, it is that kind of the witty one-liner put down retort, isn't it? That kind of...
Yeah, and you wonder what that might hide. I mean, he might have... Because he's a petite guy, isn't he? And he might have had a lot of bullying, and it might be to do with that. Very often, a lot of comedians come from backgrounds where either, they're moved from school to school because their dad's jobs moved, all of that.
Well, this has turned to On the Psychiatrist Slab now, hasn't it? This is a different podcast completely.
Well, I don't know that it is. I think it's part of our job to dig a little bit deeper. There's plenty of shallow podcasts out there. If you just want an unchallenging giggle, I think we have the best of both worlds. We're thoughtful, and there's the occasional giggle. It's me laughing at you usually rather than with you, but that's the way it goes.
Yeah.
It's a bit male heavy. Now, my beef about that. Bit too much beef. But it is 25 years ago. I think if it was done today, you wouldn't necessarily like it, but I think it would be quite healthy to have more female voices.
Basically, that's the shorthand for it is they'll have ruined. I mean, because it doesn't, it's like if you have... It's like saying, Smack the Pony was 25 years ago, and nowadays if they remake it, they'd make it all men. It is ludicrous. The identity politics is just ludicrous. It is. I have to say. I can't. I can't agree with you there, but...
I'm not asking you to. I'm grown up enough to cope with the fact that you're wrong.
Right.
But no, it's very dense.
So are you.
I can take it, Mr. Daily Mail editorial. End of the world shock. Yes.
Should we move on?
So basically, you're telling me I'm odd. Yes. Okay, so what are we doing? Scoring. Well, you thought I was going for 3.5 to 4.
Yeah,
Then you revised down to 2.5. I'm going to confound you by going for none of those, and not
7.
Just to confound you. Yeah, 12 out of 11-3.
Yeah.
No, I decided this afternoon, earlier today, not just after hearing you and to rub you up the wrong way, although I seem to do that naturally, 3 out of 5.
Okay.
So it's not quite a 3.5, which is sort of, regular listeners will know my default, which means it's good. It is still good. So, 3 out of 5, so not a bad number, but it's I can't show it the warmth that I think Andy Hamilton would benefit from. So I haven't quite got the love for it, but it's certainly clever, certainly good. As I said right at the beginning, the world's a better place for it. Wouldn't want to throw it away. It's a nice bit of work by some great professionals, very polished,
For me, I'd give it a 3.5. I got slightly more than that. I'd give it a 3.5. I could very well imagine when I'm out if the weather ever gets nice ever again, it feels like it's gone on not being like that forever. When I'm out in the garden and looking for something to listen to, I could, while cutting the grass or whatever, I could well imagine me listening to the whole series again over a period of time. Now I've kind of remembered it's there, as it were. But yeah, really enjoyed it, and I don't suffer from how you feel about Andy Hamilton's writing. I don't have any of that kind of going on. But probably, I mean, it isn't a laugh a minute. I mean, I kind of remembered it with more gags than it had, I think, which is quite interesting. But I still had that enjoyable feeling with it, though, Adrian. That kind of that comfiness with it that I kind of felt. Oh yeah, this is nice. I like this, and it felt comfortable and reassuring. And yeah, 3.5 for me anyway. So that's 6.5 out of 10 for Old Harry's Game. Unfortunately, we normally put a link in, so you can go and have a listen for yourself. But I mean, you can, but you're going to have to put your hand in your pocket. We put a link in this time, and I think I've linked to Amazon, because you can buy all of the series on CD. How quaint!
So they still make those.
Yeah,
I like them. Don't knock them. It's a good old format.
And when you bought the CDs and you've ripped them into your iTunes or whatever your MP3 player is, and you've got your MP3s, you've got a lovely set of coasters for.
Yeah, I was going to say beer mats. That'll do it.
Look at you.
Or petite frisbees.
You got a problem, mate. Coasters, I said, for tea. Look at beer mats.
Yes, I probably don't need several hundred of those. Right, you want some homework, don't you, for next week?
Oh, please.
It is my privilege to set this homework, not least because two Adrians want to set it. One of them is me, and another one is one of our friends, one of our followers on Twitter. We are at Comedy Slab, naturally enough, and a certain Adrian Bailey said a little while back, I think he put it in general terms, can listeners choose shows? Well, we've said for some time we encourage that. We can't always guarantee it, but we certainly we're open to looking at suggestions. And Adrian suggested something that I think it probably flitted across my much-travelled brain some time ago, and then it carried on flitting across the brain and didn't actually stop or lodge anywhere. So I'm very happy to say that his prompt has prompted me to set an edition of Lead Balloon.
Oh.
You remember the Jack D sitcom, Jack D vehicle, I suppose we'd have to call it. I don't want to give too much away now, but yeah, I think it's long overdue to go on the slab.
We talked about it, didn't we? Didn't we? I'm sure one of the episodes we referenced it, didn't we? And mentioned it.
I think we must have done. Yeah, it does feel like that. And then, as is my wont, I think I completely squirreled it away or forgot about it. Yeah. I know you keep a little log, don't you? Being a bit more efficient than me, don't you? Write something down when you think of possible slabbies.
I used to, but do you know the biggest? I've got kind of like with new comedy. I've got a waiting list with new comedy now.
That's a nice problem in a way.
I see stuff. Oh, I know what I meant to tell you. Sorry, talking about new comedy and stuff and things we were
just
stabbing.
Quickly.
Yeah, very quickly. Episode 82, like last week's, or the one before us now. It's like I'm thumbing a lift, I know, on the M6 there. The one before us, Derry Girls.
He's motioning. Yes.
I watched the whole, in between recording last week and recording this week, I actually watched the whole of Series 1.
Oh, now, this is spinning off into a whole new territory. Maybe we should have a different podcast, but what about your mark for a whole series then, just quickly, out of 5? I
can't remember what, it got 7.5 in total, didn't it? What did I can't remember what I go.
I imagine 3.5. That would imply I'd given it 4, which I didn't. No, I think I gave it 3.5. I think you might have given it 4.
No, I'd give it 4. I'd stick with 4 because
that's good.
I really enjoyed it. It still didn't have enough Tommy Tiernan for me, but it was good.
Right,
it was good, funny, good stuff. Okay. So I'm going to watch Series 2 now, and eventually I'll catch up with whatever's current at the moment. But sorry, go on, do carry on.
Right now, before I forget, I must say which series we're talking about because I think there were 4 of Lead Balloon.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to go bang in the middle, I could be assuming wrongly because I haven't got the info in front of me, but I think they're probably six-edition series. But even if they weren't, I'm going to go for Series 2, Episode 3. So in theory, at least, if my theory is correct, that should be bang in the middle. Because I think we've done quite a few Series 1, Episode 1s, not least in this episode of... the Comedy Slab. So let's... and I think it's the kind of thing that we can pick up in the middle there.
I think you're right. There isn't a lot of backstory,
sort of
is there?
No, it's kind of self-contained episodes. So that'll be a bit of fun. You'll enjoy that, I hope. I hope.
Yeah, nice one, other Adrian. Thanks for the suggestion. If anyone else has got any suggestions, send them on over.
Yeah, please do. So a reminder, Adrian is following us on Twitter at Comedy Slab. We'd love it if you did likewise. We don't over-tweet, but we quality tweet, quality rather than quantity. So stuff we think you're interested in, as well as, of course, blowing our own trumpets of comedy. And there's also a Facebook page, also, that is at Comedy Slab. And do subscribe to us. Or am I stealing your script now?
No. Well, you can subscribe. Okay. You can like and follow on those and subscribe on the old podcast catchers, do they call them still?
Podcatchers, something like that.
I was thinking of the child catcher from Chitty Bang Bang when I say that.
Or a rat catcher.
Thanks. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Spreaker, Stitcher, iHeart Radio. We are everywhere, baby.
Just like your sexy husky tones. What else to say? Oh, if you want to give us... let's put it more encouragingly. We would love you to give us a generous star rating on iTunes / Apple Podcasts, and to recommend us to friends, family, all of that would be hugely appreciated. Spread the word.
And so until next time, hopefully I will be back with you for the next Comedy Slab podcast, germ-free and a little less like Barry White.
And I think I'll miss that in a funny way. So yes, provided we don't have to spend all eternity with Andy Hamilton, which I think might pall on all of us just a bit. I have to say, I can smell burning and sort of sulphurous, eggy smell as well. But I don't want to dwell on that.
Sorry, but I've not been well.